So I didn't think anything on Ash vs. Evil Dead could ever make me want to look away from the screen, and I am really glad that they proved me wrong. Okay, so last review, I said that I was a little disappointed that Ash or his father didn't bring up Ash's sister Cheryl, and apparently I just needed to wait an episode for her to be brought up in some form. The flashbacks to Cheryl at the cabin were great. You would think what happened to his sister would still haunt him to this day. And I really like moments like this where Ash is a little bit less of an asshole and he remembers some of the things that he has lived through, which haunt him all the time, and he tries his best to forget. And we saw his facade break down just for a little bit when he was remembering what happened at that cabin. Ash parties and wants to have a good time because he wants to forget about the shit he had to go through and because he experienced immense trauma as a young man and he just can't move beyond it. And I know they've talked about how Ash's change in personality really wasn't explained too much between movies and that they've tried to kind of correct that a little bit, and I like these moments. I love these moments actually, where you see sort of why he would have that abrupt personality change even between movies and why he's the way he is now. He deflects a lot, and he deflected in that hallway with Kelly. Yeah, LSD. Pablo trying to be a bamf was adorable. You knew Ruby was going to come out on top in that situation right away, but Pablo is like that tiny dog that just thinks he's huge and so ferocious, and he's just bark, 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 and he doesn't realize that his bite isn't half as bad or even a fraction as bad as his bark. Although tiny dogs can be vicious. But my point stands. I also liked Pablo getting a bit miffy when Ruby mentioned that it was her children, and he was like, hey, they came out of me. And then poor Pablo, you're not the father. You're just a portal for my children to come out of. I'm curious, as I'm sure we all are, about Pablo's powers. They hinted that it was going to be because of his heritage, and some of these powers were because of the blood that runs in his veins, but now it sort of makes it sound like they're trying to say it was because the book bonded with a human for the first time and perhaps gave him these powers. So now I'm actually wondering if that's not the case, but they think it is, and as the season goes on and Pablo's powers develop, they're going to realize that the book didn't give him those powers. He had those abilities because of his heritage, and the book either helped awaken it or perhaps made it just a bit stronger. Also, they promised us a lot of mucus with Ruby, and I don't consider what was on her this episode as a lot. So now what I'm hoping is as the season goes on, she just keeps getting covered in more and more and more mucus. Kelly keeps showing how much of a badass she is. The cop takedown was super impressive. I really enjoyed their fight despite how brief it was. I actually enjoyed that scene a bit more than probably I should have, just them looking at each other and then the charge and them fighting, although he kind of went down like a little bitch. I don't know if that's just because Kelly is super capable, or maybe he's a small town cop, or maybe it's as Ash was saying that he always was kind of a little bit of a sissy, but he went down really fast. All right, and the morgue scene. I will start this by saying I am not into toilet humor at all. I don't enjoy that sort of stuff. I usually don't find it funny. So when I saw where they were going with this, I was kind of cringing and not wanting to watch the scene because I'm like, I don't want to deal with feces or anything like that. No thank you. But despite the use of that humor, this scene was phenomenal and freaky as fuck. I also love how once again they showed that Ash is very much so a man that takes action first and thinks later. At first I was so confused when he was carving up the bodies. I was thinking, okay, with the female bodies especially, they're so small. Ash, if there's a book inside them, you don't have to carve them open to see it. Just start looking at the bodies. And I'm so happy at the end. Oh, and by the way, when he's using the chainsaw to open them up, that was so very much Ash, which is, well, why he did it, but such an overkill, and I loved him just going body to body with his freaking chainsaw, cutting them open, just having no respect for the dead. He has no fucks to give. But I liked at the end where he actually called himself out on it and was like, okay, yeah, Ash, in the future, let's look first and cut later. The possessed intestines were, of course, amazing. My favorite part of that fight was him trying to punch it. I don't know why. Holding intestines in your hand and trying to punch them out, just, I had a giggle fit. Ash going through the man's ass was special, certainly for Ash, who now no longer wants to hear the word ass and hole. ever again. And as traumatizing as it may have been for us viewers watching a man's head go through another man's ass, think about this from Ash's perspective. He's been through a lot of shit. He has seen so much gore, so much dismemberment, just really fucking awful things. He has killed loved ones. And the fact that this still affected him just was so amazing. I like Ash being the badass that walks in and isn't fazed and is willing to do whatever it takes. He sees carnage and he's like, whatever, I've seen it. Someone that he is loosely friends with is possessed and pisses themselves and he's like, we've all been there. The fact that this kind of traumatized him a little bit and made him step back and go, I've seen a lot of fucked up shit. This was a new level of fucked. I need a moment, I think was so cool. And again, I do appreciate him being the badass with one-liners going in, ready to get things done, but I also like it when we find things that can still make him take a step back and think, yeah, I'm gonna have nightmares about this. Not that he doesn't have nightmares about the other stuff. And then there's the end with the boy taking the car with the book. How quickly do you think that kid is gonna die? I wouldn't be surprised if the beginning of next episode, Ash and them catch up to the car and either the kid is dismembered or there's blood everywhere and he's just gone. That kid is a goner. Best line for me this episode was, Ash Williams doesn't know a lot of words. And the worst line, at least for me, was, boatloads of cold sores. Just no. So that is my review of episode 2 of season 2 of Ash vs. Evil Dead. Usually these videos are out a lot sooner, but I went on a family trip and got back a little bit later than expected, so this was much later in the day than normal. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, and come back for more TV reviews every week. Besides that, I do movie reviews, comics, Star Wars, Game of Thrones, anything sci-fi, fantasy, or scary stuff related.